Today's second book of the day is Alone at Dawn by Dan Schilling and Lori Chapman Longfritz, who is actually the wife of one of the main characters of this book. And I thought this would be a great book to discuss and some of the lessons inside of it, because earlier this morning when I went to Mass down the street here at church, the priest mentioned, during his homily, the Bible quote, "Greater love hath no man than this, than to lay down his life for his friend." And got me thinking in Mass that I should probably read a book on this, or at least that's related to it. And also one of my close friends has recently joined the Navy, so got me thinking more about military service. And this is a crazy story because it's about this gentleman, John Chapman primarily, who on a mission in Afghanistan back in 2002, he wasn't a Navy SEAL himself, but he was basically an Air Force combat controller who was grouped with Navy SEALs, and another Navy SEAL, Neil Roberts, had died after falling from a helicopter on this mountain. And so the SEAL team that John Chapman was paired with wanted to go back and retrieve his body. So John Chapman went back in with them. And keep in mind, this is on the top of a mountain where it's super snowy, in the middle of the night, low visibility, and they had gone back in to retrieve the body, and they were up to their waists and above in some sections of snow. And, at altitudes thousands of feet high in the sky, and we're having to climb. So it was a really strenuous physical endeavor, and that's not to mention the fact that there were enemy combatants that were firing on them the entire time. So the whole mission was very difficult from the start. And again, the reason that I wanted to talk about this book is it really shows what's possible when you're doing something for a cause that's greater than yourself. So, as many of you may know, the SEAL teams are super tight-knit groups, and oftentimes you'll see heroic acts by members of these SEAL teams, and it's a similar thing in the military too. You'll see men act in very heroic ways when they're defending members of their group out in foreign countries on the battlefield. And this is no exception here, because under withering fire, John was covering his team, and he basically ended up getting separated from them because he was pushing the enemies, trying to stop them. And he was gravely wounded at one point. His teammates thought he was dead, and yet he continued to push on despite all this, even passing out at one point and then regaining consciousness. And he did all this really with no regard for his own life. And it seems to me the only reason that he had done this is because he cared so much about those that he was fighting with and the ideals that he was fighting for in terms of being an American and fighting for freedom. Those were the only reasons he was able to do what he did, which was take on dozens of enemy combatants, become gravely wounded, and still fight on after passing out and regaining consciousness. And because of him pushing forward and doing things with, again, complete disregard for his own life. I mean, he probably could have been evacuated at a certain point, but he continued to press on because he wanted to save the lives of the men that he had gone in there with. And unbeknownst to him, he also ended up saving the lives of over a dozen men that came in to rescue them because their helicopter had gotten damaged when they landed. So John's actions were incredible, and it eventually earned him the Medal of Honor years later. And despite the fact that he didn't make it out of this alive, it really goes to show the power of being part of a group and a tribe that you really care about, and that you in some ways care about more than yourselves. And you can use the lessons from this book in your own lives too, by associating yourself with something that's bigger than you, whether it's a community, whether it's a higher power you believe in, whether you're spiritual, or whether it's goals that you have as a person or as a team. these things can all unite people to eventually do things that they didn't believe were possible themselves. And this is an extreme example, being on the battlefield and fighting with your life and ultimately costing you your life, but it can still be applied to our daily lives and in business as well. When we have a goal that is our North Star and that we're aiming towards, not only as individuals but especially in a group, it really helps us perform and do things beyond what we ever thought we would be capable of. And this reminds me of one example back in college. We were basically forced to do a case competition, and at the beginning of it, my other group members didn't really want to take it seriously. They didn't want to be there, and I can't say that I necessarily did either. But we thought about it and we said, well, we have to be here, right? We're being forced to take part in this case competition, so we might as well try. And with the goal in mind of winning, because there were cash prizes for the best performing teams, we were able to do better than we would have if we didn't care, if we didn't align ourselves as a group and work together as much as we could. So in your own lives, you can use this if you just want to get something done around the house or in your local community. If you can rally people around a cause or around an ideal that's larger than them themselves, it should have a really profound effect on the performance you can get out of people, not only other people, but also yourselves. And it's the same thing in business. When you choose a large company to go after that you want to target, it ends up inspiring people to do more and to do better than they thought was possible. And it helps too if you incentivize them. I mean, in John Chapman's case, he was incentivized with saving the lives of his teammates, and sometimes in life we can't give ourselves scenarios that are that grave or that serious, but we can incentivize people with rewards, with honor, with recognition, and depending on the person, that's just as powerful as if they were defending someone's life in some cases. So I hope you enjoyed today's book of the day by Dan Schilling and the wife of John Chapman, and leave a comment down below if you have any suggestions for other books in the future, but we'll be back again tomorrow with another one. So thank you.